Hey, Inspired Tribe, how's it going? Welcome to the Inspired Livestream. Hey, and when I say Inspired Tribe, I mean it. Inspired Tribe. This, my friends, is you. You, us all together. We're the Inspired Tribe. We're excited that you're here. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. And it's a good time to get together. It is Tuesday, June 22nd. 2021, and somebody told us that this summer solstice yesterday wasn't just a beautiful summer solstice event. It was also the 21st. Let me get this right. It was the 21st day of June. Might have been probably not the 21st week of the 21st year of the 21st century. There's a whole lot of 21st that were going on, and this was kind of awesome to see. But Inspired Tribe, we're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free, we're excited that we're together. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us from all different places. I see California's in, North Carolina's in, we see Dallas, Texas is here. Leonard is tuning in from Tennessee. Well, hello, fellow Tennessean. We're here close to Nashville, Tennessee as well. And we love exploring the topics that have moved us over time, over the years. And what we're going to dive into today is a really, really, you're looking for something in particular?
Yes, my glasses, but it's fine. I will see all the comments without
which made me remember I'm Jean Nolan, and I'm really not, but that's what we're going to get into today. And this is Kristin Nolan, the wise voice from behind the camera. And we're excited that you're with us. The topics that moved us over the years, we have, for some of them, done such extensive research that it's almost incomprehensible. And what we're going to talk about today, this is going to be a challenge for me. What we're going to talk about today, we used to put into 4 to 8 hour seminars, and that multiple times. And so we're going to try to compress this to a live stream bit-sized portion. But you have to participate with an active mind, with an open heart, and follow this thought train. It's going to answer a lot of your questions, especially if you go on the journey after this live stream and actually begin to research yourself. This is the one of the biggest rabbit holes ever, because it kind of connects. It kind of connects everything. And the reason we even got into this, was because at one point we were living in this society. We were seeing what was going on. We were becoming aware of all the things that we did not want and appreciate and like about society, or about how governments were run and how countries were run and how things worked. And we were asking ourselves, how do we withdraw our energy from the system? How do we get it out of there so we don't participate, we don't contribute to things we don't want to happen? And for that, we needed to understand, when had we actually entered the system? That was the question. How the hell did we get into this? And we received a lot of different answers over the years, but it took a while to figure out how it really works and how this is all tied together. Because you need to understand one thing. If you understand where you enter an agreement, you understand where you can exit an agreement. And we're not saying let's all leave the system and just start from scratch. We're actually now transmuting this thing. But it is really not just interesting, but also kind of crucial to understand who we really are, how we are looked at, and how we can withdraw our energy properly. So one of the reasons was that we did not like, for example, once we understood the financial system and the taxation system, we said, well, first of all, we don't really believe in income taxes. It's not necessary. We believe actually that's theft. But second of all the things that are being supported with that money, we do not support. And so time and time again, people don't support war, yet their tax dollars or tax money goes to war and other causes they don't support, other causes that harm humanity as a whole. So we began to really go on a journey and ask those crucial questions. I want to take you on this journey, but again, you have to follow this whole thing with me here. This is a big, 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 big picture, but it might give you some really big answers as well. The first thing we needed to, and this is methodical, if you will, it turned into studying law for many years now, not as intensely recently, but for many years quite intensely. And actually the origins of law, because law is the system that kind of connects us all in this that binds us all together in the legal system and in any system that humans have created. But we needed to go to more fundamental basics, and this is what this live stream is about. It's about the principles. When you understand the principles of something, you can understand the finer parts and the details. If you don't understand the principle, you will never grasp the details. So we had to ask one basic big question. What is truth? Right? Such a big concept. But we actually went to law dictionaries, and we're really curious to see how do law dictionaries, how do these people that are creating these legal systems, how do they look at truth? And there are some very, I would say probably logical statements about it. Truth is the actual state of things, yes. Truth is the body of real things, events, and facts. Okay, very good. But there was one definition of truth that I found in an official law dictionary that was used in court, that was used everywhere, that actually got the ball rolling. Truth is the basis of freedom. Truth is the basis of freedom. When you look at this here, the Declaration of Independence, that's a basis. That's the basis. There's something in here, and this is why so many people hold this in such high value and esteem. There's something in here that maybe for the first time in such a big way, at least in our Western civilization, was acknowledged. And that's what we're going to dive into, but deeper, even deeper than in the Declaration of Independence. And that is, who are we? We are living beings that are born through a natural process, like every other living being on this planet. We are born through a natural process, like the birds and the bees and the rabbits and the elephants and the tigers and every other species has a process of natural birth. So have we. So when we come to this earth as the human beings that we are, we're free on the one hand. On the other hand, we come with rights, and that has been acknowledged thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And then before that, in prior civilizations, that was also acknowledged. We come with rights, and we have given this, we've penned a term for this that is inalienable rights. Inalienable rights, which means basically no one in this place, no one on this planet gives them to you, and no one can take them away from you. You don't have to be anything specific to have those rights. You have them simply because you're born. And some of those rights that we have defined as natural rights, rights that you have because you live, okay? Every being is the right to move freely, the right to breathe, the right to eat, the right to own property. That's gone down to a more specific kind of thing. But for now, to move freely, to worship freely, which means to believe in whatever you decide to believe, or not to believe at all in anything, which is also a natural given right. To be safe and secure, and to have the right to defend yourself. Okay, these are very important things. Now we need to understand one thing. The human being, the living being, is a natural being. We have come to an understanding that there is something bigger, there is something greater, a greater force. So we are also divine beings because we're divinely created, and we have those inalienable rights. Now, if you look at those rights, for example, also to make sure that you can care for yourself and that you enjoy the fruit of your labor, whether you grow food or whether you do anything else, to be able to enjoy that which you produce, which you create. When we look at society today, when we look at the laws today, there's a trillion laws, a trillion little, rules and regulations and laws that have put such a control on humanity to express themselves that people have begun to ask, hold on a minute. What about my basic rights, the basic rights that I, was given when I came to this planet? Where are those rights? And while you're very accurate in asking those questions, once you understand what has happened in between you being born and now you being in this system, there was something that happened that you don't know about, that your parents don't know about, that your teachers don't know about, that in our experience from what we have learned, not just most, the judges don't know about, attorneys don't know about, is something that was created in the past, has been forgotten, but a system that is in place that makes sure that you, wherever you live on this planet, have to follow the rules that other people make for you, whether they are in conflict with your natural rights, whether they actually nullify your natural rights or not, doesn't matter. These laws and rules and regulations are there, and there's a mechanism that puts you in there. And this is where we have spent years of really going into the depths of this research, because the interesting question for me was, here I am, I'm going about my thought process completely freely, okay? I'm being born, I'm a human being. I have the same rights as everyone else because I exist. At what point did I become a part of a system that I did not create, that I had no say in, that I might not like, and that I never remembered consenting to actually joining it? It's a difference. If you join a club, if you seek employment from a company and they have a set of rules and regulations, what is happening is you sit down, they have an interview with you. If they want you and you want to work there, you sign an agreement and a contract, right? And you are being made aware of all the rules, everything that's expected of you and everything that you're going to receive in return. That is what we call an agreement. What you didn't know is that you actually made an agreement with your government in your country. First, your parents made it for you. And then by positive acting, which means that you have fulfilled the expectations, you have perpetuated that agreement until now. Because, and here's the crucial part, you cannot be forced to be in the system. Because these natural rights that are, they're not granted in the Declaration of Independence. They're not granted in the Constitution. They're just documented. Someone just wrote down what was at that point beginning to be common knowledge. Everyone has those rights. You have those rights. So you are consenting to participate in the system, whether you know it or not. It begins with an act that has nothing to do with you. Very interesting. When you are born, when you're born at a hospital, this whole process is kind of an automation process. They create a birth certificate. Now, think about it. What actually gets certificates? In our commercial world, there are certificates for everything, certificate for every product that's being produced, certificates for every shipment. What does that mean? Why would a human being need a certificate? For what? A birth certificate is your adapter into the system, into the legal system, into the commerce system. But whatever they put there on that birth certificate is not you. That name that is there, it's not you. It's a legal entity. That legal entity was created unbeknownst to your parents and most other people on this planet, but it is created for every being that's being born and gets a birth certificate. That is a legal entity that now, when you walk around, every time you say, I am, and you say your name, I was born on, I identify as my name. Every time you say, yes, I am fulfilling this legal entity. I am putting my life into this legal entity. I'm actually giving it life. If you wouldn't do that, you would not be a subject to all the rules and regulations in your country. You would actually not have to follow some of the most extreme and useless rules and regulations because you're not bound by them. And I want to give you a principle here. I use my beautiful board. Now this is some next level art. Here we go. You can call this whatever you want. There's God, all that is, universe, fill in the blank, whatever you want to put in there. And let's say that God, all that is this eternal energy, source energy, is the source of our creation, right? So we come from this. This is man, these are humans. And where we get our rights from is from up here. Because we're born, we have those rights, right? So over time, humans have decided that we're going to make something like a government. We're gonna give away some of those rights. Not really give away, but we're gonna put our rights into other people, into an entity that we call government, so they can kind of manage some of the things that we don't want to do on the daily. So every government on this planet gets its rights from us, from the government. Hence, they always say, you can only, so the government functions with the consent of the governed. But here's the thing. What rights do you have? Didn't we just talk about you have the right to live freely, to breathe, to think freely, to move freely, the right to express yourself freely, to worship freely, all of those things. But what about the right to kill? Do you have that? What about the right to steal? Do you have that? What about the right to harm? Do you have that? No, you don't. And the government gets its rights from the people. And if we don't have those rights, and we don't, how can we then put those rights into the government and tell them, well, you can do all those things. You can steal money from people. You can, in taxes, that's stealing. In income taxes, that is stealing. You can kill people. You have the right. We don't have that right. We can't give it to the government, you see? Something was strongly disconnected. And because a government cannot rule or govern over its creator, which is the human being, governments had to create a legal entity that is not the human being. It's a legal fiction. You just believe you are. You'd be surprised. We went to court many times on many different occasions for many different things. You'd be surprised what happens when the judge calls the name, let's say of the defendant, and someone walks up and just puts a birth certificate on the table and says, well, the defendant is present. It's the birth certificate. That's the legal entity. That's all that the judge technically has jurisdiction over. But here's what happens. Nothing in this system can happen without consent. Why? Why? Why is that important? Because slavery, my friends, is forbidden in almost every country on this planet. Slavery means that's a civil relation, I'm reading, this is a legal definition, in which one man has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. We understand what that means in real life. Slavery is forbidden. The system forbids itself, slavery, other than when you are being, when you're in prison, then you have to do labor for no work and you have no say over that. But if slavery is forbidden, then you cannot force someone into the system. You have to make it so that every time there is an agreement. And we'll get into that now, because where are these agreements? When do we sign those? Do you know that, I'm just taking this country, but this goes for every other country too. Do you know that driving, drinking alcohol, building a house, hunting, fishing, building a swimming pool, traveling, all of those things are forbidden? In our systems, all these things are forbidden unless they are allowed, which means you cannot drive unless you have a license, unless you are licensed to drive. Who gives the license? The government. When you go there and you fill out a form and say, I want a license, that is your agreement. There you are making an agreement. Do you know that we have traveled the roads without ever showing a license because we weren't driving? Driving is a commercial activity. Look it up in a law dictionary. Driving is a commercial activity, but traveling is not. Every human being can travel freely. If you know what you're doing, you could travel the roads and you don't need to be licensed. Your vehicle doesn't need to be licensed. So we have to understand that we are constantly agreeing this is free will. If it isn't free will, it would be slavery. Because slavery is outlawed, it is free will. That's the basic principle of this. And once we understand this, we understand that really we consent to all the things that we do. If you do anything in your life, it's out of free will. You cannot say that you have been forced. What you can say is that you have been deceived. That is the truth. It's such deception that not even lawyers or judges really understand it. But you know what every judge will ask you once they, and this goes way deeper. It goes way deeper. To the system, to those who created the system, you are not a human being. You are a commercial legal entity. And your birth certificate is actually worth a certain amount of money, and it's collateral for loans that governments take out. There's such a big picture here that we can't go into possibly in one live stream. We just want to give you some ideas on where to look, where to begin this journey. But the basic thing that every judge will ask anyone who's being charged with something is they'll read them the charges and then they'll say, do you understand? And they don't mean, do you comprehend? They don't mean, are you mentally capable of realizing what I just said to you? What they mean is, do you stand under my jurisdiction? Do you consent? Are you going into this agreement? And most people answer yes. You also need to understand that the words that are being used in the legal world are not English words or whatever language you speak in your country. This is not the same language. Legalese is its own language. And your attorney is actually a translator. The words in what they mean in your life, in your everyday experience, is something completely different than what they mean legally. And so you say yes to a lot of things that you're being asked, but you don't really understand what you were asked. This is a huge, 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 huge picture. A huge picture. But why this is important is because these systems have been misused for such a long time that so many humans don't want to be a part of it anymore, want to withdraw their energy, want to create something new. That was if governments and humans were actually communicating and coexisting and co-creating the way it was intended to be, no one would even be interested in these questions. But because governments have emancipated themselves into its own class that believes it's the ruling class, well, quasi-ruling class, there's of course something above as well. But because this has happened, people have been searching and researching, and there's many names for that. People call themselves, freemen on the land, or they call themselves sovereigns. And all those labels, we don't really care for. It's just something that points to a greater truth. And the truth here is, the basis for freedom here is that a real human being that is self-actualized, self-realized, understands that we come here with rights and responsibilities, that we actually desire. As soon as we step out of that, as soon as we violate, as a human being, we're allowed to do everything we desire to do unless it's harming someone or their property. And we can go a little further and say, unless it's harming all of our property, which is Mother Nature, right? As human beings, these are the only rules that we need. We can do whatever we desire to do as long as it doesn't harm other beings or their property, our collective property. What else in terms of rules? This includes all the morals, actually. This includes all the important ethics. But we are conscious beings, we're aware beings, so we're fine-tuning these rights, you know? So as soon as we violate that, we don't identify as human beings anymore. We're not authentic human beings anymore. We step into this legal fiction, because only in this legal world is this constant law breaking and constant trying to screw someone over thing happening. In the real, authentic, natural world, with self-actualized humans, not so much. But the interesting thing is Plato understood this thousands of years ago. Plato said, good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. And do you know, do you know that it's mostly quote unquote bad people that create laws for people that don't follow the laws? This is the irony here. The irony here is that most laws are created for bad people in the full understanding that they are not going to follow those laws anyways. And so we have this situation where we are beginning to realize who we really are in all of our glory and how we really function on this planet and in this world. Why we have studied this and we've gone in depth, this is so deep. The more you research, the deeper you go, and you will understand this is actually a spiritual thing. At the core, because we wouldn't discuss it if it wasn't that, it's actually a spiritual thing. And this came from the ruling classes of ancient times and from the religious ruling classes in their desire to own the land, the body, and the soul. That was the claim, for example, of the Holy See, the Catholic Church, all over those last 1500 years, is that they claim the soul, the body, and the land. Is it lagging?
What?
Our connection is on. We must be over. Connection gets unstable around here when we're over the target. It's very interesting. The thing is this. We could go out, leave this system completely, and just create something new out in the boonies and just make beautiful kin domains, live beautifully together, create a new way of living. But there would be still a big mess that we've left behind here. And so when we understood all of this, we really went all out. Kristin and I,